Glory be to Jesus Christ. Today, as you already know, is the Sunday of the Pharisee and the tax collector. This parable takes prayer as its theme, as had the parable before it. Prayer is a theme that is prominent in Luke. However, if you go back a few verses before we started the reading, you find an interesting passage that tells us that this parable is directed not to the ordinary disciples, but, quote, to those who trusted in their own righteousness and regarded others with contempt. Not an attitude that's unknown today. Righteousness, what is it? Righteousness denotes living in accordance with the requirements of the covenant between God and Israel, as outlined in the Old Testament and as re-outlined in the New Testament, especially in the Gospel of Matthew and the Epistle to the Romans. Being justified is the verdict of acceptance one hopes to have in the eyes of God on the basis of righteous behaviour. Now, in a very religious society, the question of who is righteous and who is not will always be central. The Gospels describe the milieu of Jesus, placing this issue as the concern of the Pharisees. The judgmental behaviour of the Pharisee in this parable is not typical of Pharisees in general, much less of Judaism as a religion. We must be careful of not to make that assumption. It affects all religions, Christianity included. What we have described in this parable is the inner self of two men who have come to pray. The Orthodox theologian, Father Alexander Schmemann, offers insight in his classic Great Lent Journey to Pascha. It's the sort of book that a lot of people in the Eastern world read as they prepare for Lent, and that's what we are doing now. In this book he says the following: the gospel lesson pictures a man who is always pleased with himself and who thinks that he complies with all the requirements of religion. He is self-assured and proud of himself. In reality, however, he has falsified the meaning of religion. He has reduced it to external observations, and he measures his piety by the amount of money he contributes to the temple. Now, on the other hand, we have the tax collector. He has a different inner world. Schmemann goes on, he humbles himself, and his humility justifies him before God. If there is a moral quality almost completely disregarded and even denied today, it is indeed humility. The culture in which we live constantly instills in us a sense of pride, of self-glorification, and of self-righteousness. It's built on the assumption that we can achieve anything by ourselves. And it even pictures God as the one who all the time gives credit for our achievements and good deeds. Humility, be it individual or corporate, ethnic or national, is viewed as a sign of weakness, as something unbecoming a real man. The parable perfectly illustrates Luke's theme of reversal. Luke loves to turn things on their head. And this is what is going on essentially in this parable. God will one day move to align the human situation with the nature of God as God is, not as persons like the Pharisee and the tax collector perceive God to be. And the gospel summons humanity to align themselves with the new perspective of God. Prayer, as the Pharisee failed to see, consists not in telling God how things are, but in allowing God to communicate to us the divine vision of life and reality. So perhaps we have to stop and pray and meditate about that. This is the challenge we face as we approach the beginning of Lent 2021. Glory be to Jesus Christ.